Hi, I'm Jack Steele, CEO of Agency Agile. Welcome to this webinar on bloat. I think this is the second time I've done this, so it usually takes me a couple times to work out flow and everything. So I apologize if it's a little bit chunky, if you will, but I think it's better than the last one I did, and usually third time's a charm. But thanks for joining me today for the second time. So I'll get going. I will tell you a little bit more about myself and Agency Agile in a few minutes, but I think let's get on to the topic and start with that, and then we'll take it from there. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A panel, and I can I'll bring that up on my second screen and the like, and I can stop at any point and actually come on. Here we go. Waiting for it to run full screen. And I can answer questions on the fly as well. I don't mind doing that. I get the Q&A panel. Boom. Up here. And my attendee list. Let's turn that off. And away we go. All right. Let's talk about bloat. There's several symptoms. I'm just going to name a couple, but there are actually probably about 30 different symptoms of managerial bloat. A couple of the ones that we see commonly inside of agencies are things we call, one is priority wars, where people fight over whose work is the most important to be worked on right now. And there's meeting wars, where you've got overlapping competing meetings. Because different managers are trying to get different things done and trying to get the right people in the meetings. One of the things you'll also see is over-attended meetings, meetings that have way too many people in them. And often that is over-managered meetings, as in there are more managers in the meeting than you would think necessary, actually, than are necessary. And sort of the penultimate of that is the decision war, where all these things compete and create a whole bunch of noise around how do we get things done? How do we as the managers work together and all that kind of thing? So let me talk about what is managerial bloat. Managerial bloat is a symptom of agency growth. And so back in 2014, I noticed this. We've been doing this for about 15 years now. As agencies grow, the group of managers, the size of the managerial cohort, if you will, grows faster than the speed of the agency. So the pyramid on the upper right is 5 times larger than the pyramid on the upper left, yet it has 10 to 15 times as many managers. And I've shown this slide to literally thousands of agencies. I speak at several conferences a year, and this is true, and it keeps on going. It keeps on getting worse and worse. Back then in 2014, what put us on the map as a consultancy and a business process improvement organization was this op-ed I got in Ad Age regarding this. The growth was actually, and this managerial growth exists in all types of agencies, but we were working initially with just digital agencies. Now, it's endemic to agencies and what we call a broader set of project-driven organizations. That is, organizations that have multi-project environments, multi-client, et cetera, that kind of thing. I'm going to show you later how to measure how bloated you are. That's sort of towards the end of the presentation. But let's just for the moment assume you're on the right presentation, and we'll take you through some of the things. Bloat is costly, okay? And so what we're talking about is managerial bloat, getting more managers than we potentially need, okay? Now, you may feel like you need those managers, and you don't. I'll show you some counter examples. But also managers have some inherent cost to them. It's called the manager tax. And actually, it's the manager taxes. And they go this way. One is, the more managers you have, the more costs you have. They tax profits. They are, in fact, not additive to productivity, which is the second thing. This is axiomatic in the business research. The more managerial activity you have, the lower the organization's productivity has. This is especially true in knowledge worker organizations. Additionally, the more managers we have, the more costly our managers are from the perspective of, if I only had one manager, then that manager can just manage, right? But if I've got 10 managers, then those 10 managers interact with each other, which none of that is managing. It's just managers interacting, chewing up managerial time, costing money, okay, and often creating more conflicts and the like. So managing, and this is a guy won a Nobel Prize for this idea. So don't even think about it not being true in your mind. It's absolute truth. Every time you add a manager, all your existing managers get more expensive because they get less efficient. And that follows on that new manager that gets added has diminishing returns, and you bring a new manager in, other managers get less effective, and this new manager isn't like the second manager you hired, who is actually very, very productive. That manager has lower productivity. Now, this is from, I'll tell you about my book in a few minutes as well. This all assumes managers manage optimally, which most managers in an agency don't have managerial training. So if you manage poorly on top of these challenges, bloat makes bad managing worse. Very important point. I'm going to put a keystone slide on this. Bad managing makes bloat even worse. Okay. Now, where does bloat come from? And you saw the pyramids, and I'm going to take it. The pyramids are driven by something a lot of people in agencies don't realize, is that you actually run in what's called an ad hoc business model. It doesn't mean you don't have a business model. It's just that that's what the researcher Henry Mintzberg decided to call this style of organization. You form ad hoc teams that deliver against ad hoc, random, chaotic needs of clients, and your clients are ad hoc as well. They've come from different industries, you have different styles to them, you're selling to different parts of the organization. This very fun. It's part of what makes agencies really fun and exciting, right? Because it's always a new challenge, all that kind of thing. But it has intrinsic chaos to it. Okay? And it's driven by 4 aspects. Okay, one is that you're always doing something different you've done before. Even if it's similar, it's different, right? Also, a lot of the work, what we call work unit size, is small, and that means workers get fragmented and work gets fragmented, and that means that there are a lot more sort of chaotic connections that go on. You've got a complex and very busy client base. You have clients in different industries. You have different buying points, different client needs, all that kind of thing. And you end up with this overmanaged organizational structure and style out of this. In other words, that the decisions that agencies make are based on not an ad hoc organization model, but a more traditional bureaucratic or process-oriented, like factory style model, right? But it's not a factory. It's, in fact, the more you try to treat an agency like a scalable production factory, the more you get lost. It should say a fifth one comes into play, is that as the agency grows in size, it gets worse. Okay, all these challenges become things that create the need, the constant need and belief that you should hire more managers. Okay, what does this affect? Not much, except for all the key metrics of the organization: delivery, quality, productivity, happiness, margin, top line sales, client retention, and team satisfaction. I just listed a couple there. So let me show you how this happens. Now, we've got these are actually key root cause factors inside your agency. One is people have to understand the work to do it. Second is that people need to get aligned on their understanding of the work. That's alignment. Third is they need to be able to coordinate effectively. Fourth is they need to have productive flow. 5 is they need to feel empowered and happy, and then that results in a productivity factor. So I'm going to talk about two main things here: is delivery and scope quality, how well we deliver and how well we're understanding the work. And the second is raw productivity and the like, right? So, but let me dive into these. The small agency, you can see this is 5 people or so, fantastic agency. Everything works really well, except for the fact that you're always wondering whether you have not enough clients or too many clients. It's very tippy kind of organization. I just saw what's his name, Tipping Point, speak at a TED conference a couple weeks ago. So now I've got Tippy in my head. 25 people. This is in many ways probably the most ideal agency size. The it's small enough of a natural group that it's easy for people to understand what the clients want and the like, and everyone kind of knows. This is the one-room schoolhouse of agency life, right? The alignment is actually happens pretty easily as well, as long as you're good at sharing information and feel like everyone has a right to know everything. So it actually, things work pretty well. Even coordination works well. Of course, flow still, people still get a lot of productive flow time, and people feel like they belong. And in fact, the research shows that the scores are quite high in these size agencies in terms of how much they love being in the organization. I should probably update. I would put the productivity factor a little bit higher than I have on this slide. Now we get to 50 people and everything goes to hell. Okay. There's a thing that happens is you get it's an uncomfortable number of people from the perspective of sharing information. And by now at 50 people, I've got 40 clients at least. So actually having everyone know everything is no longer economical. And in the understanding of what we're doing starts what we call balkanizing. You know, there's a smaller group that's the in group that knows what's going on. And then there's the out group, which is everybody else. And so often this is the leads and the account people feel like they know everything. And then it's about how do we transfer to everyone else who doesn't know. So alignment becomes a lot harder to do as well. And at this point, around 50 people, you usually get what's called a strong department model, which is a mistake in an agency. It's a big mistake. And there's called owned resources where the departments decide how the agency runs basically. And then productive flow at this point starts becoming much more rare around business hours. Empowerment and happiness are still high for some. The farther up you're in the organization, the happier you are. The farther down in the industry surveys show this. Junior and mid-levels are far less happy than people at senior levels and above. And productivity starts going down rapidly. And I'm not going to do the next one because it just sort of all goes to hell, basically. And there's sort of this hockey stick of misery, right? And we even talked to 25-person agencies who feel it coming when they're at 25. Right? Yeah, we're starting to bump up against some stuff we've never seen before. And that is that sort of wall of what happens at 40 and 50 and above and the like. Okay, so that's sort of just a first part on Bloat. Let me just say hello and tell you a little bit about me and Agency Agile and the like, and why we know all this stuff and why I can speak in this way, this sort of authority. I had a prior career as a management consultant and started off in software development, technology, robotics, industrial engineering, but ended up at Rand Corporation after I got my MBA. I was an analyst and eventually a researcher there in management sciences and organizations. I studied organization theory and in fact, ad hoc organizations was one of the things I focused on. I ended up running an agency. I was an executive in 2 agencies and then also ran Sapient's Los Angeles office, 105-person office. And getting that agency experience, having been at Rand, I could see, wow, people don't understand how these organizations work. And that's what we've been doing for about 15 years now, helping complex organizations, mostly agencies, but we work client side as well. I invite you to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting stuff, videos. I just posted I've got next slide is my book. I just posted a Notebook LM podcast, an AI generated podcast about my book and the like on LinkedIn, so you can see that. I did publish a book this year. We won 3 awards, and they're real awards too, and still 5 stars on Amazon. And a great review from Kirkus. You can find it there. I think we have it on sale right now for $9.99. So, and then the Kindle book is even cheaper, I think. So. A great book. It tells you what you need to know about managing as a manager, right? I'm talking about an organizational topic today, which is bloat, which is what we do in our consultancy and the like. It's help organizations get better as an organization. We've worked with 3,500-person organizations, but the vast majority of our clients over the years have been in this sort of 5 at the smallest, actually amazing, and they felt it was great training, all the way up to 200 or more. 200, 400 kind of thing. Over 200 agencies we worked with, and we get, according to them, some amazing results around team and client happiness and faster work and additional margin, all that kind of thing. So let's go back to where bloat comes from. I take another angle on this. One is an ad hoc organization. The other problem is that the matrix management model, which people believe is costless, okay, is actually very costly in project-driven organizations like agencies. I'm going to show you, I'm going to explain this idea to you, and you'll see, oh my God, we do this all the time. And it's actually proven to not work, but people never stop doing it. It was born in the 1970s. Matrix management is a very simple idea. I've got a manager and a worker working on a project from this department. That's the vertical, slice there. And all of a sudden we go, well, hey, why don't we have this other manager give some input as well? And maybe that'll be helpful, right? And so once you start unleashing this idea and replicating it, what you end up doing is you get all kinds of, oops, I don't know why it's not building right. So what you end up getting is a lot of different managers and workers from different departments all mixed together. Now, part of this is the multi-project nature of work these days. But in fact, as the managers join in, what we end up with is any given person working on the project has sort of 4 managers in this little example here, right? Okay. Now this is the opposite of managing. There's only one true manager, and the others are called quasi-managers. And this idea can work well if very specific boundaries are followed, and the specific boundaries are like, yeah, it's efficient to get the managers and the like, but they need to stay specifically in their lane in the conversations and be perfectly aligned with each other. And that's so not what happens at an agency or most of the real world. In fact, some of the early organizations to try this jettisoned it right away. One was, I was working at Digital Equipment Corporation a few years later than this, but Ken Olson, the legendary CEO of Digital. Digital was like a competitor with IBM and Hewlett Packard back then. And they implemented it and then got rid of it because nobody's getting any work done. It's a very let's get work done kind of organization. There are a couple problems. One is, I already mentioned, I need to fix the slide. More managers is not better, okay? So the idea that more managers is helpful and that we're going to utilize our managers better is actually a mistake, because overutilizing managers actually, as I point out, will reduce productivity, because the more managing you do, the lower the productivity. And the multi-project allocation component of it means that, in fact, it gets quite chaotic, because I actually end up having multiple sets of multiple managers, okay? And in that way, dividing someone's focus up is actually subtracting from their focus, okay? And it's worse in agencies because agencies have so much ad hoc nature to them. What happens in an agency as it grows, we've got the team, we've got clients, and eventually we've got this large cohort of managers, okay? Now the leads on the right are the true managers, because those are the department leads, or the department heads. But I've got account managers, I've got project managers or producers. I've got someone else like strategy or creative thinks that they're managing the project. And all of these managers believe they have a right to weigh in at any given moment on what people in different teams should be doing. Okay. This is, again, the exact opposite of having a manager, okay? This is the idea behind having a manager is that I would, in fact, have one person that tells me what I should do and tells me my priority, but I actually have people getting over-allocated, multi-allocated, managing, right? And so this amplifies the managerial costs of having a lot of managers as well by directly reducing productive capacity. We've got a lot of other webinars on these topics. I'll tell you about a few of them in a minute, but the problem this creates, there are 2 problems that this creates. They fall into well, there are a bunch of them, but the main one is organizational latency. The more managers you have, the slower your organization runs. 5-person agency gets shit done fast, okay? 50-person, 100-person agency takes a long time to get work done. Okay? It seems agonizing long. agonizingly long, partly because it just seems like the work's not moving through very quickly. And the reality is it's not, okay? And what's happening is a lot of key functions are getting delayed all over the place because of this cloud, this bloat, if you will, of managers. In fact, what they should do is call a group of managers. They should call it a bloat of managers, just like, what's the one for a murder of crows or something like that, a bloat of managers. Two prevalent forms of latency. One is scope latency, the other is decision latency. These are the two ones that we help agencies fix to get the great results. Board briefing and scoping create a thing we call rework rate. It can be named a bunch of different things, overage rate, etc. The idea is this: we have planned 1,000 hours for this piece of work. Insert your own number there. But the actual hours we spent were 1,300. That's 30% rework rate. And in fact, this rework rate is directly attributable to the fact that scope does not flow easily through such a complex organization with so many multi connections and the like. Now, I talk a lot more about the challenges of this in an on-demand webinar that we have on our website. Also, we're doing one of the live episode with some updates next week, November 6th. So if you want to come join me for that. Also, the broken scope cycle, the whole broken scope cycle, I talk about in another webinar. You can shoot us a note if you want to see it. We'll have it coming up soon, probably later in November, early December, called the $1 Million Margin Makeover. We talk about the broken scope cycle and the like, and dig into that in some detail. Now, I wouldn't be talking about this with such authority unless we were experts at fixing it, and we are, in fact, fixing that problem, scope problem. It's probably what we're best known for, though many people want to work with us because of decision latency. Okay, and decision latency is driven by over managing. This is there are a couple things that happen here. One is this needs to get resolved, okay, which is you getting different directions, and none of them are particularly helpful to the workers and teams. And then that makes workers and teams passive. So they're always asking for, what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Why am I doing this? All that kind of thing. And that actually makes what we call decision latency. It's executional latency. What does it take to actually go execute something is making a decision, knowing the decision is aligned and all that kind of thing. It comes from this situation literally where 5 to 10 managers can interrupt any one maker, right? Yeah. And by the way, this is in a 50-person or more agency, this is the hardest job in that agency, because all you're trying to do is get work done every day. And in fact, the organization is now structured in a way contrary to you being highly productive. Now, I mentioned some of these things earlier. Priority wars, that's an example of priority war. Those 5 to 10 managers competing for that person. Meeting wars, the same competition happens. Can I get you into my meeting? Can I schedule a meeting to make sure you're working on my work? So I'm going to take away productive time from you to make sure you're productive in the way I want you to be. The same thing happens with these managers all want to be in meetings or have their people in these meetings, which chews up productive time, or they just sit in the meeting to make sure nothing's happening that they don't approve of. And of course, then the decision wars that inevitably follow from all of this as well. Decision latency makes noise and a chaos that interferes with workers getting things done, what we call productive flow. We survey when we work with a client, we survey when we start working with them to find out how many productive hours in the day people have. For a lot of agencies, this is 2 to 3 hours per day. So what we see is that the productive time, you've got lost productivity. You can get up, by the way, you can get to about 4.5. In a 50-person agency, you get 4.5, even 5 hours a day in general of productive time. That's almost twice as much as you were getting before. So it's a huge boost in productive time. So it is fixable, but you need to know how to fix it, which is, in fact, what we do as well. Okay, so it's the second problem we fix, how to get more productivity out of teams. There is a on-demand webinar, which I'm also doing this afternoon at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock East Coast, called Why Agencies Become Crazy Places to Work. If you're not signed up, please shoot us a note and we can send you a link to register. I think it's not necessarily easy to find now that we've turned the advertising off. But this will talk more about this whole problem of chaos in the organization, 9 different factors, et cetera. Now, let's go to how about you? How much bloat does your agency have? Okay. So there's this thing, the manager to team member ratio. Okay. And you can see on the left, we've got this 10 managers, 20 team members, 30-person agency, right? So it's a ratio between managers and team members. You get that's a 1-to-2 ratio, right? Okay. But it's not so simple. You will tell me that if I don't tell you first. There are 2 cases we want to deal with. One is managers in name only. So you end up with managers in name only when you're promoting people and they want a title that makes it sound like they got promoted. Okay. And so maybe I'm I'm a manager of digital strategy. Okay. Well, I'm a manager, right? No, you still do digital strategy. I don't particularly manage anything, but it's a way of saying that you're at some sort of new level, right? Actually, even like art director has director in the title, but that's not really the idea, right? You're not really a director, but so the managerial title creep creates the Mino situation. There's also fractional managing, which is a lot more common, which is I do some managing, but I still have my foot in that other proverbial boat. So we'll cover that, the fractional and non-managers. If there is a minor managing role, count them as 2 times their manager allocation. Like if Jeremy is a creative director, but actually has to manage some associate creative directors, and is given 20% allocation, count that as 40%, 0.4 in this calculation, and then count their their team member allocation. So they might be 20% of the, you got to do 20% of the 80% of the day, and that kind of thing. So it'd be 25%. Manager times 2 is 50%, and then the other 50%. So you'll end up with some crazy numbers a little bit, but it's fine. We're not trying to count people. We're just trying to understand what the ratio between activity is. For someone who's really seriously a manager, like a director of technology, a senior director of technology or VP of technology, if it's greater than 50% manager time, then just treat them as a full-time manager, count them as that, and then cut their team member time in half, okay? Because it's not nearly as productive as it sounds and doesn't necessarily, we're not counting billability, but cut it in half. You'll get a more accurate representation, right? So they don't add up, but it'll give you an accurate representation. If you're at 1 to 4 and you're in that 50-person organization size, you're doing okay. I mean, if that's a real number, 1 to 4. 1 to 3 is where you start, and 1 to 2, of course. There are agencies we've seen have come to us that they're 1 to 1, basically. And even with all the and there are reasons sometimes where it could be okay and the like. But in fact, you don't need to be there. And first of all, the worse your ratio is, the more you need to be managing those things, the scope latency and decision latency that make your organization suffer. So anyways, so if all this sounds familiar to you at all, of course, we can help you fix it. That's the point of the webinar, is to make you aware of something and aware of someone who can actually help you. I do want to say, is bloat necessary? No, we have a client in Australia that we work with, that we help them go from, I think, probably a 1 to, what would that be? It'd be a 1 to 5 ratio down to almost 1 to 40, right? Maybe a little bit more like 2 to 40 kind of thing. But you can, if you want to, really attack the bloat problem directly. We teach a lot of team-based self-management techniques as well. And one of our other clients is a 120-person agency with 8 managers. Again, this requires a lot of discipline and the like, and willingness to shed managers and the like, which most agencies don't have, and you don't need to. In fact, the results we get are largely by not having an agency shed managers, but just fix the latency problems. If you have bloat, we can help. We have industry-leading programs that help reduce those 2 forms of latency. We also, I'll mention real quickly here in just a slide or two, We do increasing a lot of advisory and coaching and all the pieces around this as well, just because we work with several hundred agencies now. And we have a cool program. It's only 3K if you're, I think, under 20 people, something at 4K, $4,000. You get 8-hour retainer. It's the CEO advisory service, and we do a bunch of stuff with you. But we can work in a whole range of areas: positioning, selling, aligning our mission, vision, values. We've got fractional resources. We have a good network of people we can bring in to help clean up, fix up departments. We're doing a project right now to improve an account management function. It's actually 2 clients we're doing that in. Leadership alignment workshops. We do work in pricing. Of course, managerial accounting is a huge area. And figure out how to control costs as you grow and the like. We do some restructuring work. We've done it in the past. And these are all things we know how to do because we understand agencies and we've run agencies. Our backgrounds include that. We do a lot of work, like I said, on the account side. And then, of course, our core is in this operations and project delivery side. A lot of agencies talk to us to help them implement workflow management systems in a non-intrusive way. That's a whole other webinar coming up soon. And also team management, how to balance and structure distributed work and build self-managing teams and the like, and really make a great organization. So anyways, a lot of different pieces. We get almost daily, we get inquiries on that as well. So anyways, open for discussion, and I'm going to turn the recording off right now, but thank you for those watching afterwards for joining us, and give us a call if there's anything we can do to help out on this.